Two police officers, Tom Carter and Bob Randall, cruised the quiet streets in their patrol car, their lights flashing lazily. Both in their 40s and bored out of their minds, they exchanged idle chatter about their uneventful day, which consisted of writing parking tickets and scolding jaywalkers, their favorite pastime, pulling over anyone who looked remotely suspicious. "Hey, check this out," Tom said, nodding toward a sleek black sedan parked outside a small store. A tall black man, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, was loading bags into the car's trunk, a little overdressed for a late-night grocery run. "Don't you think?" Tom mused. Bob chuckled. "Dealer, or maybe he's hiding something else. Looks like we've got ourselves a volunteer for a traffic stop." They pulled up beside the sedan. The man glanced their way, but remained composed, shutting the trunk and straightening his jacket as they approached. "Evening, sir," Tom began with forced authority. "Just a routine check. Mind showing us your ID?" The man raised an eyebrow. "Routine? What's the reason for the stop?" His voice was calm, deep, and unnervingly commanding. "Reason?" Bob smirked, stepping forward. "How about because we said so? You people always have something going on. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "You people," the man repeated, his expression neutral. "I hope you're aware that racial profiling is illegal. I suggest you reconsider this approach." "Oh, we'll reconsider," Tom snapped, grabbing the man's arm. "Hands on the hood. If you're clean, you've got nothing to worry about." "I'd advise against this," the man said, his tone unwavering. "You don't have a warrant, and I know my rights." Ignoring his words, they cuffed him and began rifling through his belongings. Bob chuckled as he patted the man down. "You've got quite the attitude for someone in cuffs." Tom popped the trunk open. Inside was a large black briefcase. Well, he said, opening it with a flourish. "What do we have here? Cash? Something illegal." The briefcase revealed neatly organized documents, stamped with the Department of Internal Affairs seal. Among them were photos, reports, and dossiers all bearing the officers' names. Bob's smile vanished. "What is this?" he muttered. Tom flipped through the papers, his face straining of color. "This can't be real." The man, still seated calmly on the curb, allowed a faint smile. "You should have listened. Now it's too late." A loud beep emanated from the briefcase. Bob's voice cracked. "What's that noise?" "An alarm," the man replied smoothly. "Backup is on the way." The sound of approaching sirens grew louder, and the officers' confidence evaporated. For the first time that night, they realized they were no longer in control. Tom and Bob leaned in, expecting to find something incriminating inside the briefcase. Instead, their eyes met neatly stacked folders, all bearing the Internal Affairs seal. The weight of the situation began to sink in as Bob spotted a document titled Official Termination Notice. "Hold on," Bob muttered, squinting at the bold letters. Beneath the title were their names, badge numbers, and a list of allegations. Tom snatched another folder, his hands trembling. "It says we're being fired for systemic discrimination and misconduct. This has to be a joke, right?" Bob frantically flipped through the papers, each more damning than the last. Pages detailed questionable stops, civilian complaints, and screenshots of their internal communications. The parking lot seemed to close in on them. "What the?" Bob began, but stopped short as his hand frowned on a tablet nestled in the briefcase. The screen flickered to life, and a video began to play. It was their voices, their movement recorded from the moment they had pulled over the man. Tom's voice echoed from the video. "Guys like you always have something to hide." For a moment, neither spoke. The reality hit too quickly to process. "This has to be staged," Tom stammered, flipping through the folders in desperation. "Someone's messing with us." Bob slammed the briefcase shut and stormed toward the man. "Who are you? What is this? You're trying to set us up." The man remained calm, his piercing gaze steady. "Gentlemen, you've done this to yourselves," he said, almost amused. "For months now, you've been under investigation. Every stop, every unnecessary escalation, it's all documented. And tonight, you sealed the deal." "What investigation?" Tom barked, his voice cracking. "You don't even have the authority to." "I do," the man interrupted firmly. "I'm Charles Hartman, Chief of Internal Affairs. And what you just opened wasn't a briefcase. It was Pandora's box." The world seemed to stand still. Tom and Bob exchanged panicked glances, their bravado crumbling. "You're lying," Bob blurted, desperate. "This can't be real." Hartman's expression remained steady. "Oh, it's real. And now that you've triggered the alarm, reinforcements are on their way. You've got about 3 minutes to think of your next move." The piercing beep from the briefcase grew louder. Sirens wailed in the distance, cutting through the tense night air. The blare of sirens grew louder as the seconds ticked by. Tom and Bob's once steady confidence had crumbled, replaced by fear and desperation. They stared at Charles Hartman, whose calm demeanor only amplified their unease. The man had already outmaneuvered them in every possible way. Flashing red and blue lights illuminated the parking lot as an unmarked car screeched to a halt. Out stepped Captain Lewis, a towering figure whose commanding presence could silence an entire room. He surveyed the scene with a practiced eye, taking in the restrained Hartman, the visibly shaken officers, and the open briefcase lying nearby. "Everyone freeze," Lewis barked, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. He marched directly to the curb, his gaze locking on Hartman. "Release Mr. Hartman, now." "Mr. Oh," Tom muttered, fumbling with the handcuffs as his hands shook. "Charles Hartman," Lewis said with deliberate weight, "Chief of Internal Affairs, the man who just exposed both of you for what you are." Tom's face went pale. Bob, usually quick with a retort, was too stunned to speak. "Captain, there's been some kind of mistake," Tom stammered, stepping back. "We didn't know." "Exactly." Lewis cut him off sharply. "You didn't know because you didn't bother to ask. You didn't see a man. You saw an excuse to flex your authority. Your actions are a disgrace to this department." Tom and Bob exchanged panicked glances, their bravado completely gone. But Sir Bob tried to interject. "Save it," Lewis snapped, raising a hand to silence him. "Everything you said, every action you took, it's all on video. And guess where that footage is now? The department's archive. Don't even think about denying it." The weight of Lewis's words hit like a sledgehammer. Both officers stood frowning, their minds scrambling for a way out. But there was no escape. Hartman, now free of the cuffs, stood and adjusted his jacket with an air of quiet authority. "Thank you, Captain," he said, his voice as steady as ever. Turning to Tom and Bob, he added, "Gentlemen, consider this your final lesson in accountability. No one is above the law." The humiliation was palpable. Tom and Bob stood there, stripped of the authority they had wielded so carelessly. The flashing lights of additional patrol cars reflected in their stunned faces, signaling the end of their careers. The aftermath was swift and unrelenting. Within hours, the footage from Hartman's hidden camera was uploaded to the department's archive and quickly leaked to the public. The video, which captured every moment of the encounter, went viral almost immediately. Social media exploded. Comments ranged from outrage at the officer's behavior to praise for Hartman's calm and calculated approach. "You see this guy?" One popular post read, accompanied by a clip of Hartman's composed demeanor. "That's how you handle injustice, with grace and receipts." Memes of Tom and Bob's stunned faces flooded the internet, turning them into symbols of systemic corruption. News outlets picked up the story, highlighting Hartman's efforts to hold law enforcement accountable and the undeniable need for reform. By the end of the week, Tom and Bob had been stripped of their badges and terminated from the force. Internal Affairs issued a formal statement condemning their actions, and legal proceedings were already underway. The evidence against them was overwhelming, leaving no room for denial or defense. As for Hartman, he became an overnight icon. Journalists hailed him as a beacon of integrity and justice. His unshakable composure and relentless pursuit of accountability served as a reminder that true authority comes from character, not a badge. In interviews, Hartman remained humble, shifting the focus away from himself and toward the larger issue at hand. "This isn't about me," he said in one televised appearance. "It's about ensuring that the law applies to everyone equally, no exceptions." The incident sparked widespread calls for systemic reform. Activists, community leaders, and even some within law enforcement used the viral footage as a rallying cry for change. Town halls and public forums were held, where citizens shared their own experiences and demanded greater accountability from those sworn to protect and serve. Meanwhile, Tom and Bob faced the consequences of their actions. Their names became synonymous with abuse of power, and they struggled to adjust to life outside the force. The very authority they had taken for granted was now a distant memory, replaced by the harsh reality of public scrutiny. For Hartman, the outcome was bittersweet. While he was grateful that justice had been served, he knew the fight was far from over. Each case like this one was a reminder of the work that still needed to be done. But he remained resolute, knowing that even the smallest victories could pave the way for meaningful change. The story served as a powerful lesson. Accountability is not optional, and no one is above the law. It challenged viewers to reflect on their own actions and biases, inspiring hope that change, while difficult, is always possible. Thank you for watching until the very end. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more inspiring stories. Have a wonderful day.